What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video on my channel, and today we're going to be going through my most anticipated video of every year, AFL season predictions for 2021. Another massive year is starting to get closer and closer for what's going to be a very interesting season, and I think a lot of difference will come through, especially in the early rounds, and with many teams starting a rebuild, many teams losing plenty of star power, but also many teams grabbing that star power into their side. It's going to make for a very difficult prediction for this year, but I think there's a few standouts and a few that will definitely not make the cut. But nonetheless, let's get straight to it. Here is my 2021 AFL season predictions. I will just say a little bit of a disclaimer. This was very, very difficult, and I've done a lot of effort into studying what's going to happen this year. And I tell you what, every single year I seem to stuff it up big time. So the books are out the window, and I have no clue whether or not this will be right, but I'm hoping for my sake in the end prediction that it does happen. But nonetheless, I'm interested to see how I'll go again this year. But starting with 18th position, it's North Melbourne. Now, North had a very difficult 2020, and well, with their coach Rhys Shaw now leaving, I think a different perspective once again will come through the club, and they'll really have to focus on rebuilding. They've obviously added Jaden Stephenson, who's going to be a very, very handy forward pickup for them, so hopefully he does add 2 or 3 goals, because I know North do have a lot of talent still in their side and a lot of the young prospects that are coming through. They've got the their top 10 draft pick as well this year. So I think with them, they'll be in a rebuilding phase, but don't be surprised if they do snatch a couple of very handy victories along the way. It's no longer the days where teams on the bottom get 1 or 2 wins. They're definitely going to pick up 3, 4, maybe in 5, and might not even get the wooden spoon. But they, for me, will be wooden spooners in 2021. We're hitting 17th position. Now, this might surprise a few already, but I think with the exhale that's been happening at the club of late, and with all the players leaving and not much coming back in return, Collingwood are finishing 17th in 2021. I really feel like they hit a wall in 2020. They couldn't really produce the football they wanted to. They wanted a bit of a clean out, and with Buckley the main head at the table now, with Eddie Maguire now going, a whole different perspective is going to come through the club on and off the field. And I really feel like they'll struggle to get any sort of grip on 2021. So no doubt they'll still be pretty competitive, but I don't think they'll be getting the results they wanted, are expecting this year. So 2021, they'll be finishing 17th. In 16th position, it'll be Hawthorn. Now, for me, Hawthorn have the talent. They have, the criteria to be a top 8 side, but for some reason they're not able to execute that, and I really feel like they're struggling to come to terms with this belief that they so-called have, but just haven't been able to execute it. And I think now that's starting to show, and they've been figured out, and Alistair Clarkson is trying to find different ways, and he's trusting his processes. But there's been a lot of off-field drama, a lot of rumours hanging about, even still at the moment. Tom Scully's retired. Jonathan Patton doesn't look to be in any sort of shape or form going to be participating in the early parts of this season, and I just think they'll struggle to find, like Collingwood, they'll struggle to find any real momentum coming into this season. And I think they they'll be in contention for the bottom 4, that's for sure. Whether or not they go even lower into the wooden spoon stage will be something that we'll find out, but for now I think they'll be 16th. In 15th spot, I think it'll be the Adelaide Crows. Now, I think with Adelaide, I really enjoyed their last month of football last year, especially those 3 wins they had on the trot, along with the close game against Richmond in the last round. They've got some talent. They've definitely got a better morale around the club at the moment when they did compared to starting last year. They seem to be pretty happy and pretty content with where they're at and the development they've had in the first season under Matthew Nicks. And I really feel like that this year they'll take another step towards being able to grow in this new area that they are a part of, and I think they'll shock a few teams. They'll almost remind me like a Gold Coast type, where the first 6 or 7 rounds they'll really shock everyone. They'll play some really good football, but I think as the season progresses and the heavyweights start to build into their season, they'll find it a little bit more difficult. But I reckon they'll be around that mark of finishing between that 12th and 15th spot. it'll be really tight because I think a lot of teams will be on par in that situation. So no doubt I think Adelaide will improve. Depending on how they go, I'm not 100% sure, but 15th seems to be a pretty safe bet at the moment. 14th, a team that is pretty similar in the Adelaide Crows' position is Essendon. Obviously, Ben Rutten, now the head coach at the Bombers, and he will be looking to take this team into a new direction come this season. With Worsfold now gone, I think they might be better off going in this different direction, different dynamic. Without Orazio Fantasia and Joe Danaher part of the side, they'll be able to really focus on developing some younger kids and not putting so much effort into these players that have had drained a bit of energy, let's say, from the club at the time they were there because of the injuries and the constant speculation that they had. I think now they'll be, as a group, be able to focus on each other and really gel. And I reckon, they might surprise a few and actually be able to go high, and they may even contend for finals, who knows. But I think overall they have a pretty decent team, names on paper, but I can't see them doing much damage. But they'll definitely be competitive and really push a few teams. And they always do. They never really bottom out, Essendon. I think that again in 2021 will happen. So good luck to the Bombers. I really think with a new coach and a different perspective, it'll work well for them. Whether or not they are contenders, we'll soon find out. 13th is a position that I think is that benchmark of you're either going to be going downhill or uphill. And for GWS, I think they'll be going downhill. They might actually bottom out a little bit more. They've had they've had a lot of speculation around the club and the way things have been handled. And last year they missed the 8 considerably in the end, and finishing 10th after making a grand final. They've got 2 choices this year. They're going to have to push harder to go up, and with the talent that they have, you'd hope that they are able to execute that. But for me, I think they're on the downward spiral. They've had so many chances to be able to be a part of that final series, get that first premiership as a club, and they've failed essentially. And I think coming into this year, they'll once again be stagnating, and they'll find that a few teams that were behind them will start to close up, and the teams that were ahead of them are going to push away further. So GWS are that middle of the road club at the moment, and they really need to figure out what's best for them, and they have done in this off season. So it'll be interesting to see how their season pans out. But yeah, I can't see them doing much in the finals this season. Down the road, in 12th position, is the Sydney Swans. Now, they finished 16th last year. They were pretty competitive in certain stages. Their young talent is absolutely exceptional. And with Isaac Heaney at the front leading, I think if they get Buddy back, that's the key thing for me. If they get Buddy back and he's somewhat able to copy and paste some of his earlier form when he was at the Swans, and if he has a 30 to 40 goal season, then they will definitely be contending for a finals position. But depending on Buddy's, his body and how that holds up, and whether John Longmire can get this young group into the next stage of their development and really push to be that top 8 side again, it's a very, very big question. It's an unknown question, but I think overall 12th seems to be pretty reasonable. That's a definite step up. They'll be aiming for that 8 to 10 win season, and if they get that, then 2022 is going to be a massive launching pad, because this group is one of the best young talents in the comp. They have a good crop of players, and they're really going to be pushing in the next few years for that flag again, because their talent is unreal, and the way they were playing in spurts last year is definitely something to admire. And I'll be keeping a very close eye on Sydney in 2021. In 11th spot is going to be another team that's going to be really competitive this year and really answering that question of can they finally push for that top 8 position, and that's Gold Coast. Stewie Jew's got this team in a position where they can take the next step. They were really, really competitive last year. They did drop off a little bit towards the back end, but they still kept that competitive edge, and he's got them playing a game style that's worth watching. And we said when Stewie Jew took over from the Swan, from leaving Sydney, going to Gold Coast, that he was the right man for the job. I've always thought that Stewie had a brain for football that's really going to help develop a young side. You've got Matty Rao coming back. They've got a lot of young talent in their forward line. And Ben King's going to be leading that. And I really think, they've got so much such a good crop of players. Isaac Rankin's another one. They got a lot of star power as well, and I really feel like that if they get a run on in 2021, they'll be playing finals. And that's why if they finish 11th, they can really take that on the chin and move into 2022, where I think no doubt they can almost guarantee themselves a final spot if they play the way that they did in spurts last year for longer periods of time. And I hope they do, because they're a really exciting group of players. Finishing in 10th position is Fremantle. Now, Fremantle's hard to get a read on. I can't... They were in spurts last year. They were really competitive. They were really... They took the game on, and they bet teams that you wouldn't have expected them to do so, earlier down the track. But now they're in a position where they've got that young talent. They're led by Fife. And I really feel like that they can take that next step. They'll be contending for finals this year. They are such a well conditioned side. They've got that blend of youth and experience now, and hopefully they can really get themselves in a position to play finals. Because I think Fremantle are one of those teams that seem to get forgotten about, and they have no doubt got some really young talent, really good young talent, pushing through. And Sarong, Sarah, they are stars, and they will carry this team to a top 8 spot. But for now, I think they'll finish 10th. Finishing 9th. Now, 9th is that prestigious position where it's almost like, wow, they're not playing finals, but they probably deserve to play. And we've had teams in the past where, Richmond, they're the 9th position kings. Melbourne, they finished 9th. Port Adelaide have been there a couple of times in the last 5 or 6 years. So, Carlton, I think, will be finishing 9th in 2021. And they're going to take that next step. They had a little bit of up and down season in 2020. They definitely were a very competitive side, and we actually got that finals talk around them for the first time in a while. This is now or never, I think, for them in terms of making the 8. This is that year. This is that year they take that step and they really push for a spot. And if they can get that, then I think they're going to be a really hard team to beat when it comes to that September action. We know they've got a good young crop of players. We know that they've got a good game style. It's just whether or not they can execute it. And if they do so, then come finals time, they'll be really dangerous. But I can't quite see them beating what's going to be the top 8 in 2021. I think from about 12th to 6th, it's going to be really hard to see who makes the 8. It's really hard to predict what's going to happen in that bracket, because they're all pretty similar in terms of how they play, in terms of what form they're in, and they definitely need a lot of luck on their side. If they're beating each other in this form, then I reckon anything can happen. Who can make the 8? But this top 8, I really feel like will be a really, really exciting final series. Finishing 8th will be West Coast. For some reason, when you lose an elimination final in the way that they did against Collingwood at home, I cannot see them really doing much more damage than that. They've had their little block of success. Whether or not they are able to push again, I'm not 100% sure. They've got the talent, they've got the crop, they've got a really star-studded forward line, and I'll probably be wrong, and they'll probably make top 4. Optus Stadium is definitely a fortress, obviously, for them. But I think they're that type of team that they've taken this hit, and now they're going to be that stagnant club that stays in the 8 and can really push for a deeper finals position. But whether or not they can do so, I'm not sure. So West Coast are that that floating team in the 8 that they could finish anywhere. So, but for now, I think they'll finish in 8th position and scrape in front of Carlton. Finishing 7th is Melbourne. I think this is they took that step last year. They were really handy. They were really inconsistent, but they were also really good when they were good. So I think adding the additions of Ben Brown, they needed a star-studded forward player, and they've got him now. Combine him with Wiedemann. I know a couple of them are injured, so they'll take a while to gel together and really set up what's going to be a pretty long and enduring season. I think the D's are up for it, and with the likes of Oliver and Petrarca in the middle, and they've got a really, really, really good defence with Stephen May and Lever, and They've got that depth now that I think they wanted. They've got a star in each part of the ground, and they've just got to make it work, and I think they will. Finishing 6th is St Kilda. We know what they did last year. They unfortunately didn't quite get the job done against Richmond in the semis. I think they'll be around the same mark again, finishing obviously in 6th, and I reckon they definitely have the star power to go into the top 4, but whether or not they push for that is going to be something that we'll definitely be answering at the end of the year. And as I said, the top 8 is going to be a very scattered one. I don't think we're going to see any clear dominant team in 2021, but I have no doubt that St Kilda will be a very hard and difficult team to play, and probably on their day very difficult to beat. Finishing 5th is the team that played Richmond in the grand final, Geelong. I think they'll drop a little bit. I can't, losing Ablett's not a massive loss, but I think, having Jeremy Cameron added to the side with Tom Hawkins, it can be a bit of an anticlimax. They've got 2 very star-studded forwards now, but can they make it work? And I think with the ageing list and just something, once one drops off, they all start to drop off. And I think Geelong will be around that side where they'll probably pick up the wins they should. Whether or not they can copy and paste from last year will be a question that, again, will be answered at the end of the year. And I think they'll definitely be that team to beat again. But I think as well, it'll be interesting to see how they work it. Finishing the 4th spot will be the Western Bulldogs. Adding Treloar to the mix, definitely, as I said with Geelong, will no doubt be a question that will be answered at the end of the year. Such a star-studded midfield. Bont will probably play more forward. And the way the Dogs were playing last year, they just scraped into the 8, but they've got that star power, and they're playing a brand of football that's really, really, really enjoyable to watch. And they're playing, they've got that mix of 2016 again. And I really hope that they can bring that into this year, because they are a team that, when are on, very hard to beat, but also really enjoyable to watch. So finishing 4th for them will be a massive achievement, and no doubt they'll do some damage come finals. Finishing 3rd is Richmond. I think they'll be the team again to beat. They'll no doubt be happier that they don't have to travel as much, don't have to be in a hub, and that's what we've got to remember. The Victorian sides will be back home, so it'll be a lot of, again, a different dynamic for this season. And I have, again, no doubt that the Tigers will be up there. You don't create a dynasty like Damien Hardwick has without the hard work, and they've got the star power. They've got everything that you want in a side, and it's just a good group. It's just a really, really solid, tight group of players that know their role, play their role. And again, I think they'll be hard to beat in 2021. Whether or not they win the premiership will be a different story, because I think last year they showed that you can play anywhere, put them anywhere, and they'll win. And it still stings with Port Adelaide losing, but they very much deserved last year's premiership. It's the hardest premiership to win in a pandemic, and I think if they copy and paste what they did last year, they'll be up there again. Finishing 2nd is Brisbane. Now, for me, Brisbane, adding Joe Danaher, if they can get him fit, they're going to be probably the best team in the comp. They need another forward alongside Hipwood, and they need... what hurt them last year wasn't kicking straight. It really does affect a side, and when they came to playing Geelong, they didn't take their chances, and they were pretty decent on the night, but Geelong were obviously the better team. They've just got to tweak that a little bit more. We know that playing at the Gabba is a fortress for them, very hard to beat, so that you no doubt predict they'll win majority of their games there. And they're a pretty good travelling side as well, so their draw is pretty favourable, I would have thought. But I think overall they'll be finishing 2nd. They'll get a home final, and they'll probably recreate last year. Finishing 1st. Now, I'm very happy that we've gotten to this point of the video, because especially ending last year, I thought, oh, here we go, we're going to bottom out again. We've got that, we've peaked in 2020, but I don't think that's going to happen this time. Finishing 1st is Port Adelaide. Why I think we'll be minor premiers is I really feel that we've got a base that we can build on. We've changed our mindset. We've got a different dynamic. We've added a couple of really good recruits in Fantasia and Ali. And I've bagged Fantasia many a times before coming to Port, and I'll still have that question mark over him and seeing what he does if he has an injury-free run. But the dynamic of our team, youth and the elderly with Boak and Robbie Gray, with Charlie Dixon in form, I've always said he's our most important player. If we get this dynamic right, then 2021 is our season. And I really, really believe that we will. That's why in 2021, I believe Port Adelaide will win the premiership. A lot of people are going to clip that and use it against me at the end of the season when we probably won't. But when you have a belief in a team, it's like being a Richmond supporter. They've won 3 out of the last 4. You have that belief in a team that no doubt every single week. Last year, I had that belief every single week that we were going to win. A majority of the time we did. Unfortunately, you got to the prelim and I fell off that day. Now, this year, I've come into this season and I feel like, this is our year. Whilst it's an unpredictable season, and no doubt that I could get many of these wrong, I really do believe that Port Adelaide will win the premiership. And you know what? A lot of people will be against that, and a lot of people will say I'm biased. You know what? It's a little bit of bias. But at the same time, I will admit, I genuinely believe we have what it takes to win this year. And it's a stab in the dark when you're doing predictions for the AFL, especially coming into this season. Right, let's move on to the individual predictions for the Brownlow and the Coleman medal. Firstly, the Brownlow medal, I am predicting Christian Petrarca will win this year. Lachie Neale will come second, and I think Ollie Wines will be third. I firmly believe with Melbourne making the 8, more wins than losses, he definitely deserved the votes he got last year, and Melbourne didn't even play finals. So if that's anything to go by, a couple of extra 3 votes, he'll no doubt be right up there again. And then a few extra rounds as well. It's going to really come into play for anyone that didn't win it last year. And the Coleman medal, I'm predicting Charlie Dixon. The likes of Tom Hawkins, Jeremy Cameron, Joe Danaher, Tom Lynch, all these players, they're definitely going to have a really, really, really good year. And again, like I said, having a prediction on the Coleman medal and the Brownlow is a stab in the dark. But I think if Port Adelaide's going to win the premiership, finish top, then you'd assume that kicking goals is going to win you games, and Charlie Dixon did that a fair bit in 2020. So that's my prediction for the Brownlow and the Coleman medal. Well, everyone, that is my predictions for 2021. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're new for plenty more Port Adelaide and AFL content coming your way across the 2021 season. Let me know what you think about my predictions in the comments below. My name is Anthony, and as always, go on the pair.